Welcome to Lawgical, the UAE's first and still the only regular legal podcast. My name's Tim Elliott, and I'm with the managing partner of the Dubai-based legal firm, HBL Yamalova and Plethka here in Dubai. Ludmila Yamalova, good to see you.
Good to be here with you, Tim, as always.
Now, this episode of Lawgical, Ludmila, civil marriage under Abu Dhabi's civil family courts. Now, this is big news. You can now get married in a civil ceremony at the Abu Dhabi Civil Family Court. Can you not?
Indeed, we can. I guess not so much the we, because you and I are out of that game now. But certainly anyone else who wants to get married.
Out of that game now. We're on the shelf.
We are, yes. Yes. Super high up on the shelf. Outside of reach. Yes, until about 20, or I guess more like 2022 almost, there was not really an option in the UAE to get married in a civil ceremony. So there were options for non-Muslims to get married in the UAE, but they were all religious marriages, and they could have been Hindu marriages or Christian marriages under different types of religions, but they were all ultimately done through one religious institution or the other. Right. So in 2021, at the end of 2021, Abu Dhabi introduced its own law. And under that law also opened up a new family court under the Abu Dhabi Judicial Department that offered first, not just in the UAE, but in the region, civil marriages. So there were two components to it. One is the law itself, and two is the court, or the branch of the court that ultimately administers or oversees civil marriages. So in the law it's the Abu Dhabi law number 14 of 2021, and it's called Concerning Personal Status for foreigners, or it later was renamed as civil marriages and its effects. Now, as per this law, anyone who wants to get married in a civil ceremony can do so now through the Abu Dhabi, the family court, and in particular through the Abu Dhabi Judicial Department website. What's important to highlight is, although we're talking about Abu Dhabi, at the end of the day, it's this service is available to anyone who lives in the UAE. You don't need to have any kind of connection to Abu Dhabi. And even more so, it's also available for tourists. So you don't even need to be a UAE resident in order to have the civil marriage through the Abu Dhabi Judicial Department. I just want to kind of make it clear that the court, the overseeing court, is what's called the ADJD, the Abu Dhabi Judicial Department, and under it is the Abu Dhabi Civil Marriages or Family Court that is specifically dedicated to these kinds of matters.
Okay, so this is now enshrined under UAE law. It's Federal Decree number 41 of 2022. Couple of interesting points to make, I think. Unlike marriages under Sharia law, civil marriages in the Emirates don't require guardian approval, and there are no medical tests as well. Is that right?
Yeah, it's actually a fairly simple process. It's the only documents really you need to submit are your identification documents, passport, and or Emirates ID. And in the event one of the parties or either party had been previously married, they need to also show proof that that marriage has now been dissolved. So for the most part, that's about all you need to submit. You're required to submit. So really, truly, it's just the identification documents, and obviously, in the event of previous marriage, that. Also, there's an optional document that is the prenuptial agreement. So those parties who wish to, as part of their marriage application, to also include a prenuptial agreement, they can also submit that. But that's basically it. As you rightfully said, previously, if you wanted to get married through the courts, the local courts in the UAE, most of those, not most, all of those marriages were done under principles of Sharia, and as part of that, some of the other requirements, in addition to the identification documents that had to be presented, were the medical test and, most importantly, the guardian's approval. So, and in this case, there's none of that is required. The only thing is you just need to show your passport, Emirates ID, and show up there on the day of the ceremony to sign the document.
And it's all online. You apply online, do you not, as well?
Exactly. So it's truly very modern, very
It
21st
is.
century.
Mm.
And which is great news if you think about it, because it makes it easy for people to formalize their relationships without having to to travel outside and wait for months in order to get the documents processed, as was the case before.
Yeah.
So as you may recall previously, those who wanted to get married, and let's say in a non-religious ceremony for one reason or another, or for one reason or another, they wanted to get married outside of the UAE. They had to travel outside of the UAE and then get married wherever it is that they would have gotten married. Some of the more popular places previously that are close to the UAE were Sri Lanka, Seychelles, perhaps those are kind of the Mauritius, those are the main ones. And then after that, those documents would have had to be notarized and attested by and legalized and apostilled through the various authorities. So, I mean, that process alone would have taken, or used to take, about a month plus, just attestation of documents in order to be able to present them in the UAE. Well, now, and that's not to discount the time and the cost and the hassle and the nuances of actually planning a trip outside of the UAE to get married and to perhaps accommodate your guests if you actually wanted to hold or host some guests as part of your ceremony. So now, as part of this, you're not required to leave the country. You don't need to attest any documents because you're getting married in the country. And so whatever documents that are resulting from this marriage basically are already UAE documents, if you will. So they don't need to go through the apostille requirements as was the case before. And furthermore, it's all online, truly online. I mean, the UAE, and I guess, and I continue to say this, the UAE had really taken perhaps some of the best advantage of COVID, because you embrace the whole digital domain and the digital world and the e-government, the smart government. And as part of it, it's made all these services, including legal services and court services, accessible almost exclusively online. So as you rightfully said, yes, the application to apply for the civil marriage, all you need to do is to go to what's called the ADJD, which is Abu Dhabi Abu Dhabi Judicial Market, or
Abu Dhabi Judicial Department, isn't it?
Sorry,
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
it's ADGM, yes. So Abu Dhabi Judicial Department, or ADJD. They have a website, and under it, there's a special service there for civil marriages application, and you go to that and submit basically, and to log in. By the way, you log in through the UAE Pass. So this is where having the UAE Pass is very important. Mm-hmm. And once you log into the UAE Pass, it's very self-explanatory. So you don't need to set up a separate court access, for example. So you just go to ADJD website, the UAE, log in through the UAE Pass. There's a special service there for civil marriage application, and then you submit through that process. You submit documents such as your Emirates ID and a copy of the passport, and if you want, a copy of the prenuptial agreement, and any kind of previous divorce decrees if relevant. And then that's that. I mean, and then you also pay a fee, and then you wait to hear back.
What is the fee, by the way?
It's fairly accessible, if I may say so. So the regular fee for the civil marriage is 300 dirhams. So that's the application fee. That's 300 dirhams.
It's about under $100.
It's about $80, correct. Yeah. There is also an option for an expedited service, or it's express civil marriage application, and the cost for that is a little more. It's 2,500 dirhams, so almost 9 times higher. But it is an express application, so obviously those who are in a rush, this is a convenient option.
Okay. Do you know, it's interesting because I was going to ask you the question of there's always something to consider from a legal perspective if you get married outside of the country that you're from, particularly, I guess, if your spouse is from somewhere other than where you're from. But if you get married here in the UAE, your expats living here, for example, it kind of negates all of those issues, as you said, flying to the Seychelles or wherever for the perfect wedding. And there's another point here as well, if you think about it. I noticed that guests are allowed at the ceremony. You have to apply with names and everything else. But you can see a time where there's a new industry coming here as well. There is kind of a wedding industry because we all know Dubai, Abu Dhabi, the Emirates, there are some amazing locations potentially for nuptials to occur, right? Imagine Emirates Palace in Abu Dhabi, for example, or somewhere like that. There's an opportunity here.
Well said, and I think well spotted. And this is perhaps why the law specifically makes it available not just to residents but also to tourists. So not only do you not need to be based or live or work in Abu Dhabi or have any connections to Abu Dhabi, you can come from any emirate to have your civil marriage administered in Abu Dhabi, but you can also fly from anywhere in the world to do so. And as you rightfully said, this presents an incredible opportunity for the tourism industry to attract for people to not just come to the civil ceremony and just going to get married and have that administered, but also celebrate the event. And the process for actually formalizing this relationship is once you show up to the court and to sign the documents and present yourselves, and you can also invite your guests, and the guests have to all they need to do is they need to present their identification documents to ADJD in order to be allowed in, and basically then the civil ceremony is finished, but then you can see how from there on these in the spirit of celebrating the occasion, then it will be very easy from there on to transition to one of the hotels, one of the resorts for the whole wedding party or for a bigger wedding party to actually celebrate the event in a more perhaps a more celebratory way, because as we speculate, or perhaps as we've seen from other jurisdictions, generally speaking, whenever you have a civil marriage, it's less celebratory in its form, because you usually appear before the authorities, you just you sign the documents, you present yourself, and then that's basically there's not much fanfare going on. It's usually the sort of the religious weddings that have that kind of the celebratory spirit, but civil marriages in general, historically, at least the administration process of the civil marriage are usually less celebratory or festive. So, as you rightfully said, for this to be in Abu Dhabi, and Abu Dhabi has so many wonderful resorts and so many great tourism destinations that you could see how there is certainly an industry in the making.
Well, if I was the manager of a 7-star offshore hotel here in Dubai and I had a helipad that Roger Federer's hit a tennis ball off, I'd be designing packages now. Let's put it that way.
Indeed, and I cannot tell you that I've been researching that particular space because I have not had the need for it, but perhaps it's already in the making, and if not, I'm sure after our podcast airs, the industry will blossom much faster. I
think that pretty much covers it, really, doesn't it? Civil marriages under Abu Dhabi's civil family courts. That's another edition of Lawgical. As ever, thank you for listening or watching or both, and thanks to our legal expert, the managing partner here at Yamalova and Plethka, Ludmila Yamalova. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Tim.
As ever, find us at LYLAW on social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. Our podcasts are all free at lylawyers.com. And if you'd like a legal question answered in an episode of Lawgical, or if you'd like to talk to a qualified UAE experienced legal professional, click contact at lylawyers.com.